Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first session of LAFCO, January 6, 2022. I'd like to wish everybody a Happy New Year and hope that everyone had a fantastic Christmas. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aceves,
Here.
Commissioner Allen,
Here.
Commissioner Freeman,
Here.
Commissioner Geyer,
Here.
Commissioner Hartman,
Here.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Here.
Commissioner Sierra,
Here.
Commissioner Stark,
Here.
Commissioner Waterfield, Commissioner Williams. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Williams is absent.
Thank you. At this time, please stand and join the commission in pledging allegiance to the flag. Ready, begin. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
of the
which
Republic
stands
of
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item of business is the Assembly Bill 361 determination. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak from the public?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, there are no requests to speak on this item.
Thank you. Mr. Prater, did you want to make a comment?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is the item for the determination for teleconferencing resolution that's consistent with the Government Code Section 54953E1, which allows the continuation of remote meetings through our Zoom meetings. So this is our every 30-day adoption of a resolution that allow us to continue to meet remotely.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. I'm sorry.
Moves, the public minutes, right?
No, this is just for the Assembly Bill 361 determination.
Okay. So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and second. It was Mr. Geyer. Will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aceves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Geyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark,
Aye.
Chair Waterfield.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. At the discretion of the chair, I would like to announce that we will be taking a few agenda items out of order, beginning with business item number 1, to be followed by business item number 2. Then we will proceed in order, beginning with the approval of the minutes. The next item is business item number 1. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, business item number 1 is to appoint a Santa Barbara LAFCO public member and alternate public member to a term ending March 1st, 2025.
Thank you. Mr. Prater?
Thank you, Chair and Commission. This is, the Commission authorized an opening of the appointment of a public member following the resignation of our regular public member, Mr. Welt. Applications were received, an ad hoc committee was conducted, interviews on December 17th. The committee had made a recommendation to appoint Mr. Stark as their regular member and Mr. Richardson as the alternate member. Each of these terms will expire, taking over the existing term would expire on March 2025. So the commission should have a discussion, consider the recommendation from the ad hoc committee, and make a selection.
Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak from the public?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, there are no requests to speak on this item.
Is there any comment from the ad hoc committee or from the entire commission? If no, I will now entertain a motion to approve Commissioner Stark and Richardson as an alternate.
I'll move it.
We have a first. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Hartman seconds.
Hartman, second. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Seves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark, Chair Waterfield.
Aye. Thank you. The next item is business item number 2.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
may I suggest a
brief,
brief break now so that we could swear in Mr. Stark as the regular member?
Absolutely.
In case he's considered for the chairpersonship, I think he should be fully sworn in as a regular member. And so we're not agendized to do that, but the oath of office does not have to be on your agenda. Mr. Stark can leave the room and the clerk can administer the oath.
okay, so let's take a 10-minute break.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. We'll take a 10-minute break. 5? You can do it in 5 minutes? Okay. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. So we have Mr. Stark officially confirmed. But until then, I got one more business item to go through. The next business item is business item number 2. Will the clerk please read that item into record?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, business item number 2 is selection of chair and vice chair for 2022.
Thank you. Mr. Prater, please.
Thank you, Chair. It has come, the time has come every year. The commission appoints a chair and vice chair. So we first want to thank you for your service over the year. You've done an excellent and wonderful job. But now it's time to allow somebody else the honor of that position.
Absolutely, and I've just enjoyed every moment of it, and it's just, the staff is just fantastic to work with, as well as all the commissioners.
Great. So as the report indicates, we typically do it on a rotational order. And so the public member would be the seat up for the chairmanship, hence the urgent need to get Mr. Stark sworn in if the commission wishes to keep the rotation in effect. And the vice chair would be a county member. So with that, I'll leave it for the commission to make your decisions.
Who's up from the county? Who's next in line?
I don't know, Joan Hartman or
Or Steve?
Doss?
No,
Doss,
Jo-
Steve?
Jo-
Steve Lavadino are the two.
It can't be an alternate, I don't
No,
believe.
correct.
So it's either
Mr.
Steve
Lee?
or me. I've never been, but I don't know, Steve, you have a longer history.
No, I would defer to you. I'm up for election this year anyway, so who knows? Well, I guess I would have served the whole year anyway, but I would defer to Joan.
So
Then
Joan
I-
Hartman it is.
Then I'd
Vice
make,
Chair.
then I'd make the motion that Mr. Stark serve as our chair, and Commissioner Hartman will serve as our vice chair for this next year.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Guyer.
Any discussion?
Do we have any public comment?
Chair Waterfield and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion from the commissioners? If not, I will now entertain a motion, which we do have from Mr. Assezes and Mr. Guyer. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aceves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark, Chair Waterfield.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Fantastic. And now I will turn the meeting over to our current chair, Mr. Stark.
If you just give me a second, I'll wipe yours down as well.
Okay to sit?
Yes.
Ooh, nameplate.
You guys got it.
Are we back? We're back. Thank you. I was going to thank Chair Waterfield for her stalwart service, and I'll do that when she returns. The next item of business is the approval of minutes from the December 9th, 2001 meeting. I would entertain a motion unless there's someone from the public wants to speak.
Hartman moves approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Seves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield, Chair Stark.
Aye.
Motion passes 6 with one absent.
Thank you. The minutes having been passed, the next item is public comment. This is the time that people may speak on items that are not on the agenda. Is there any public comment?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, we have no request to speak under public comment.
Thank you. There's Commissioner Waterfield has returned, and now probably I'd like to thank you for your stalwart service as chair. Appreciate all that you've done, and hope to move forward in your fine footsteps. Thank you very much. The next item of business is the approval of the consent calendar. Would any commissioners like to pull an item off the consent calendar? Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak from the public?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Thank you. We need a motion. I would now entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll to approve the consent calendar?
Commissioner Seves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield,
Aye.
Chair Stark.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next item is change of organization, item number 1. Would the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, changes of organization item number 1 is to consider approval of LAFCO application file number 21-06 for the Santa Claus Lane restroom sphere and annexation to Carpinteria Sanitary District, annexation number 137, and adoption of a resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Officer.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. This is an annexation for the Santa Claus Lane restroom for sanitary services. This was an application that was made by the district in coordination with the County Public Works Department. So this was by resolution of application and followed their proceedings. This includes essentially county right-of-way that is being used kind of as an adjunct parking area for beach access there in Carpinteria along Santa Claus Lane. A very narrow strip is all that is needed for the actual facility of the restroom itself, and so it's a very tiny annexation. Would annex into the sanitation district for sewer services for that facility specifically. Because the area is outside of the district's sphere of influence, we will be updating the sphere for this area as well, along with the annexation. Although we just adopted and updated to the sphere for the sanitation district for the Beach Club Road area. So here is an overview of that. I dare everybody to try and find this tiny little spot. Here we go. Up here on Santa Claus Lane, we'll zoom in a little closer. What we're looking at is this small strip of land that's in the right-of-way, county right-of-way, that would be amended sphere and annexed to the district. So the land use in this area is actually transportation corridor within the county's general plan, land use designation. There are no changes that are necessary for the development of the restroom facility, so it remained in the transportation corridor and part of the Toro Canyon plan area. The district provided a plan for service, essentially said they can provide services to this restroom. They have capacity and capability to do so. That's in attachment F. The sewer line that would reach this area is west of Santa Claus Lane at approximately 640 linear feet. That would extend to the restroom facility. Now, the county adopted a mitigated negative declaration as part of their Santa Claus Lane Beach Access and Streetscape Improvement Project a few years back. And so we're using that adoption and that determination as part of the CEQA analysis for LAFCO to take its action as well as part of the sphere amendment and annexation. It covers our action. So the commission will make a determination that you read that document and find it consistent with our action. Because the parcel is less than 12 registered voters, in fact, there are no voters on this particular strip of right-of-way. But the district has consented to that, and the property owner, being the county as well, has consented as kind of a dual applicants for this project. And so therefore, we can proceed without the hearing and notice of the protest proceedings. In conclusion, this location does allow for the district to be the best sewer provider now and into the future. The annexation represents that reasonable and logical extension of services. So the recommendation is to approve by resolution. If there are any questions to the commission, I'm happy to answer.
If there are no questions from the commission, Madam Clerk, are there requests to speak from the public?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Thank you. So the recommendation before the commission is to approve both the annexation and the extension of the sphere to accomplish this. And do I understand correctly, this is for sewer services to a county-owned restroom in the county and a transportation corridor. Is that correct?
You're correct.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move.
You can entertain. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to indicate that this is an important project for public access and for the people of the First District.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Madam Clerk, motion and a second. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Seves?
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman?
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino?
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield?
Aye.
And Chair Stark.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And members of the commission, I would just like to note for the record that Commissioner Williams did join our meeting at approximately 1:07 this afternoon.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item is business item number 3. Would the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, business item number 3 is to consider appointment of 3 commissioners to the commission's Standing Committee on Legislation.
Thank you. Is there a report from our EO?
Yeah, brief report, Chair. This is just a routine annual appointment of 3 commissioners to serve as your legislative committee for the year. There is no rotational requirement. Our 3 longstanding commissioners have always been, as my understanding is Lavalino, Aceves, and Guyer. They were the committee members as last year as well. It's at the pleasure of the commission if you'd like to appoint new members or if these sitting members would like to continue.
Are there any questions from the commission or requests to speak from the public?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, we have no request to speak from the public.
Thank you. I would First, I would ask if the existing, there's no requirement that we rotate out, is there? I would like to ask the existing members of the committee whether they're willing to continue to serve.
I will continue.
I also will continue.
Mr. Lavanino?
I'm trying to unmute. Yes, I'm good too.
Then so moved.
There's a motion, is there?
Second.
The motion and second is to continue the representation of the three members on the legislative committee. Is there any, is there any request to speak from either the public? Nope.
There are no requests to speak.
And any further discussion from the commission members? Hearing none, I would please call the roll.
Commissioner Seves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield,
Aye.
Chair Stark.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, and I thank the members of the commission for continuing their service on the legislative committee. The next item is business item 4. Will the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, business item number 4 is a recalendared item from December 9th of 2021. It is to consider and approve an engagement letter agreement with Bartlett, Pringle and Wolf LLP to perform audits of financial statements for Santa Barbara LAFCO for the fiscal years ending June 30th, 2021 and June 30th, 2022.
Thank you, Chair. This is a letter we received of engagement from Bartlett, Pringle and Wolf. They have been our firm that has conducted our audits in the past for LAFCO. From my last year, I worked with these individuals, and they were proved to be very efficient and effective. They provided a good product, and the recommendation is that we would continue using them for the next 2 years under this agreement. I will note that there is an increase in cost that is incurred moving forward. It's noted in the overall about $1,800 for 21 and $2,800 for 22 as compared to previous years.
So just so if I might, that's an incremental increase of $1,800. What's the total cost?
The total cost is $9,000 for 2021 and $10,000 for.
And are we required to do annual audits?
It's a good question. Are we required to do annual audits?
No. If we're required to do annual audits, and is there any way to get these services for less money from a comparable vendor?
Well, that is an option laid out in the staff report that the commission could request that your executive officer seek alternate auditors to see if they can provide a similar service at a lower rate, if you so choose. Noted my issues with that is that it is often difficult and to find somebody, and we're a little late in the game for this. And that we really haven't had any issues with them. And so, again, my recommendation is that we engage with Bartlett, Pringle, and Wolf.
Fair enough. Any comments from any commissioners? Questions? Is there any questions from members of the public?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
I would entertain a motion. One way or the other.
I would make a motion that we keep the same auditors, Bartlett, Pringle, and Wolf.
I'll second it.
And that would include executing the contract as presented, or
Yes,
approving the contract as presented?
yes.
And I heard a second? Motion and second to approve the contract with Bartlett, Pringle, and Wolf. Any commissioners wish to comment?
I'd like to comment. I would like the motion to probably include that in 18 months, we put it out to bid. Give us time to look at another company if necessary. This company would bid again, obviously, but I think it's probably the appropriate thing to do. So if you would amend your motion to include that in 18 months, we would rebid the accounting services.
I will amend my motion to 18 months. We take it out to bid.
But this is still a 2-year agreement, so we have time to overlap.
So the amended motion, if I understand it, is to approve the contract with the understanding it's a 2-year contract, but that we will be going out to bid or request for proposals after 18 months from now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Any comment on the motion as amended?
This is Commissioner Hartman. I just had a question. How long have we used this firm?
As long as I've been on the commission.
Since 2014?
2014. Because I think it's good practice every, 7 years or so to have another auditor come in. It's just to have another eye on the books. So I support the motion as amended.
Commissioner Guyer, can I make a comment?
Commissioner Guyer, I recognize Commissioner Guyer.
We actually do get a different auditor. I believe it's every 2 years, but it's a different auditor within the same firm. But it is a different auditor, a different set of eyes, and that's a statutory requirement.
Oh.
Thank you. Any further comment? I would entertain a motion, approve the motion as amended. Call the roll.
Commissioner Seves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Stark.
Aye.
My apologies. I misread that. Commissioner Hartman.
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield,
Aye.
Chair Stark.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The motion as amended is passed. The next item is business item number 5. Would the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, business item number 5 is to receive and file a report on the 2021-2022 commission activities and adopt a work plan for 2022.
Thank you. Mr. Executive Officer.
Thank you, Chair and Commission. This is a time where we get to reflect on all the accomplishments that we achieved in the last year and then take a brief look at what's ahead. Typically, the first meeting of the year is an appropriate time to look back and see what was performed. And in this case, in 21, the Commission held 11 meetings. We only missed 1 month in the summer for a break. In addition, staff and a number of, some of the commissioners, they attended a number of other meetings as well throughout the year. I know LAFCO had a number of events that we all, many of us have attended. And your staff has also attended a number of them countywide that had local interest. The report itself highlights some of the activities that we performed during the last year. And I'll go through those. But before we get there, a big thank you to all of the county departments that help us along the way and all of our agencies. I know we adopted the municipal service review for fire and police services and public safety, and without those entities' direct involvement, that would not have been possible. And lastly, obviously, we can't leave out our own colleagues here, our legal counsel, Mr. Dillon, our clerk tag team here of Jacqueline and Natasha. So very much appreciated all the work and effort that you guys put in and made it a very successful 2021. I'll skip the song and dance that I had there for. That's okay. Over the past year, the commission took action on 10 applications. It kind of ran the gamut there, some outside service agreements to some routine annexations for sanitation districts. And we even took some sewer amendments and annexation requests here towards the tail end of the year. So all of those 10 applications were completed and nearing wrap up as far as all the follow-up work as well. In addition, we did undertake our first SOI MSR update under our new program model. And that was quite an accomplishment in and of itself to complete that in the 1 year time, which was really about 6 months of work that we crammed into a year's worth of work into about 6 months. We also appointed a public member. We've now reappointed a public member here at the tail end. We've gone through that process. We've monitored a lot of the state legislations and worked with LAFCO and the LEDGE team and monitored what's going on there at the state. We've adopted our budget. We've prepared it. We've implemented the budget and all reporting and payroll and all of that good stuff, all the administrative stuff that needs to get done. And so we've had a pretty productive year. So looking into 2022, we have a few hangover proposals that did not get accomplished. We'll continue to work on those. We anticipate potentially another 16 applications that are on the radar. We'll go over that list in just a brief moment. And we are hopeful we're going to kick off another round of the MSRs here. That's going to cover water, wastewater, recycled water, and stormwater services. And that'll be another big undertaking with 33 agencies being involved in that. In addition, we have to still do all those other activities that we normally do, administrative-wise and routine-wise. And so it'll be another big full year for 2022, I believe. Here's the list that everybody usually wants to see is what's on the radar, what's coming forward, how big are they, what kind of workload does that look like. And so you'll see there's a number of projects on this list. Some are pretty routine in nature. We will have a few others like the Alisal Guest Ranch into Solvang. May take some additional effort. Consolidation of Montecito Water and Sanitation District will be a big effort drive. Latent Powers for Santa Rita Hills will be another big effort undertaking to move forward. And we got one over there on the list, Santa Claus Lane. We've done that one. So look at that. We're already starting to complete stuff off our list. So, and there's a few more that reached out to me in the last couple of weeks looking to submit some applications that didn't make this list because the list was produced towards the tail end of December. So a big year looks like ahead. To look briefly a bit ahead, obviously our January meeting is one of the bigger meetings because we've got a lot of first of the year stuff to do and wrap up and make appointments and things of that nature. And then moving ahead, we'll do the oath of office for our newly appointed alternate commissioner, Richardson. We'll initiate the kickoff of the MSR for the water sewer service. And then beyond that, it gets a little bit more loose. It just depends on what kind of applications really become ready and available. But in April, we'll start the budget process. And so that's kind of a key date that will kind of cue us into what's really going on for the remainder of that year. So with that, just a reminder, we've had a very productive 2021, but we're looking forward to another productive 2022. Thank everybody for their service and time, and look forward to moving forward and doing another great year. So with that, if there are any questions of the commission, I'd be happy to answer any.
Entertain questions from the commission. Any commissioners have any questions about this?
I would note that it is a kind of a receive and file of the last year with a recommendation to adopt the work plan for this year.
I actually have several questions about it. It seems that the timing and gravity of the workload that's coming up in the coming year is related to how we proceed with the staff options that are outlined in the next item. So I think it would be helpful for us to know, when do you expect the big items? And I would rate the Bailey sphere and the Bailey and the matters that you mentioned, the Montecito consolidation and the Solvang one as the ones that are the gnarliest. Approximately when do you expect them to hit?
Let me consult the crystal ball. I don't know when they're going to actually come in and file their application per se. I know all of that work is being worked on now, and your staff is monitoring and working with those and working through that process. So we're spending time and resources on it today.
And in this case, not to give you any delusions of grandeur, but the we in this case is Napoleonic. That would mean you. Is that correct?
Well, I do have our clerk staff that does provide some assistance in all of that. So, but yeah, the bulk of that
legal
is
counsel.
the one and only here that's sitting here. Yeah. So we do most of that work. We monitor all that. We we're the interface with the public and the agencies. And make sure that their applications are as clean and as tight as possible so that it makes for an efficient process of that application.
And am I amiss that with the exception of the Sphere of Influence MSR program, which we are basically driving forward, we take what comes in the door, is that right?
Yeah.
And the process is driven by the applicants and petitioners. So when we approve a work plan, that we're saying this is what we expect, rather.
Yeah, and essentially that's what that work plan outlines. It basically says, here's the MSR that we anticipate to work on. That's the driving component that staff is gonna spend time on. We know there's other projects. The work plan outlines that when those projects come in, they take a precedent, and if we have to divert our attention and work effort towards those, because those have statutory timelines and limitations that we need to address. So that's essentially what the adoption of the work plan is saying, is you authorize me to work in this direction, and then when something comes in, I pick that up and I take it to the...
So if I could be so bold, it's more of a conceptual work plan. You're just saying this is what you want to concentrate on, and this is what we expect to come in the door.
Yeah.
Thank you. That clarifies my question. Are there any requests from the public to speak on this?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Chair Stark, I have a question.
Yes, I recognize. Is that Commissioner Geyer?
Yes.
I recognize Commissioner Geyer.
Question for staff. So on the work plan, do we actually have any applications, a formal application in hand, or it's just mostly in the inquiry stage?
We have obviously the Bailey Avenue annexation and sphere. We anticipate the City of Lompoc to submit a standalone sphere application. They are working their efforts to meet the CEQA requirements that staff has outlined for them. So I'm not sure when they're going to complete that at the city level, but we anticipate that probably coming in within the first few months of the quarter here. We still have the Galileo Pisa annexation in. The county planning is working through the general plan rezone amendment process for that, and when they wrap that up, staff will proceed with that at the annexation stage level. I know the City of Guadalupe has completed their Almaguer sphere and annexation lot line adjustment. They just have not submitted their application. I'm not sure what the holdup is there. Santa Rita Hills, your staff and along with your legal counsel have met numerous times with them trying to get their application in order so that it makes the most sense. And they, for all indications, want to move forward on that sooner than later. Obviously, I've met with numerous times with the Montecito Water and Sanitation Districts, and they still are considering options as to whether a consolidation is the best fit for them, but that does seem to be steering down that path. And they I've worked with them to outline all of the documentation that is expected of their application, and they are working and meeting with consultants to fulfill that requirement. So there's a number of things that are working, but most of that list is not officially in today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Unless there are further comments, I would call for a motion to conceptually approve to approve the work plan as presented by our executive officer.
So moved.
It's mostly a receive and file with the understanding that the executive officer has stated his intention for what he intends to move forward with in the coming year, depending on the workload. Did I say that accurately?
Mr. Chair, you are noticed to approve the work plan on the agenda. So you
Yes.
can, that's his request, I believe. Yeah.
Yes.
Second. Mr. Guyer did it.
Thank you. Moved in second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Seves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield,
Aye.
Chair Stark.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. I believe that brings us to business item number 6. Would the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, business item number 6 is consideration of future staffing options for Santa Barbara LAFCO.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Officer.
Yeah, thank you. So great discussion on the last item. I appreciate all of that, those details in that, because that does help assist in this presentation as well. So we are looking at options for the commission to either delve into a full employee model or take various stages or maintain a status quo. This will assist your executive officer in preparing the budget for 22-23. So that does help for our April kickoff meeting. As discussed in the staff report, there are 4 options that are outlined that we all go through, each one of those options. And in those options, I wanted to be clear that legal services in our contract with our legal counsel is not part of that. That's a separate line item within our budget.
And we have an existing contract
We have an
with our
existing 2-year contract.
legal counsel,
Yep.
not correct?
Exactly. So this would only be the potential for LAFCO staff employees as an option. So the first option is the status quo option, which basically is your executive officer as your sole employee. We currently contract with the clerk of the board, straight with the commission, for clerk support services. So this option provides that additional funding would be necessary for any outside consulting services if we wanted to maintain and continue to update our municipal service review program or delve into any other special studies that we'd like to partake in. Option number 2 was maintaining your executive officer employee status and adding a full-time analyst to the mix. We would still maintain our contract, the commission and the clerk of the board. So with this option, that would reduce the need to seek additional funding for outside consulting services. We would now have a staff member operating under the executive officer, and we would perform all of the work necessary. Option 3 is to, very similar option as to option 2 in that it's your executive officer as your employee. This option would add a part-time clerk as an employee and maintain the full-time analyst as an employee. So it'd be 3 employees, 2 full-time, 1 part-time. Again, the option reduce the need for consulting services because the analyst fulfills most of those roles and needs. And it also would increase the support, the clerk support services, as the part-time clerk would offer more hours than that could be fulfilled by the current contract with the clerk of the board. The 4th option would be a full-blown, full-time executive officer, full-time clerk, and a full-time analyst to be all independent of the county, all LAFCO employees. And again, this option basically puts all the services within staff employees and no need for outside consulting services or funding for that. And I'll walk you through what that might look like on a summary table. Option 1 is your 1 full-time employee current model with a contract for the clerk of the board. Option 2 is the full-time executive officer and full-time analyst, maintaining the clerk of the board contract. Option 3 is all 3 are LAFCO employees, with the clerk being a part-time employee. And then option 4 is all full-time employee, LAFCO employees. So to look at what the budget might look like under those scenarios, I put a comparison looking at our county versus our surrounding coastal counties. Many of the coastal counties often have a staffing of 3 members, an executive officer, a clerk, and an analyst. And so in comparison, our current budget, overall budget, is $455,490, with the breakdown of salaries and benefits. If you compare that to Ventura, San Luis Obispo, Monterey, and Santa Cruz, you can see we're well under their budgets. If we look at option 4 model, that would be the 3 full-time staff for fiscal year 22-23. That budget would likely increase to $608,318, with salaries broken out at $304,605, benefits making up $109,663. So that's the top end of 3 full-time employees. If we go with another option of 2 or 3, it's in between those, and I didn't run those numbers, but we can certainly do that if you commission wishes to do that. So to conclude, honestly, there's 4 staffing options that are outlined. They each come with advantages and disadvantages that are outlined in the report. These all directly relate to our future budgets moving forward and the workload that we anticipate needing over the next at least 1 to 2 years. And really, we're looking at probably 3 or 4 years of this type of work. Many of these items will probably continue on well past 2022. So the question that I'm asking the commission to really look at is, I know you've looked at this option many times before me under other executive officers, even before you had contemplated hiring the executive officer as a full-time position, as to what model would best fit Santa Barbara LAFCO. And so we're kind of continuing that conversation and seeking whether the commission feels it's an appropriate time to move into that direction, either full-blown or in integral steps as we move forward. And so that's the discussion that I would like the commission to have, and ultimately give me some direction as to how I can proceed preliminarily with a proposed budget and any other options or any other components as it ties to any personnel related matters that I might need to investigate further for the commission. That concludes my presentation. If happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Before I ask for questions, just to clarify, the budget, our budget is scheduled for the April hearing, is that correct?
The preliminary budget starts in April.
And am I also correct that it's your intention next month to kick off the MSR program in the wastewater and water agencies?
Correct.
So we would be considering whether we'd want to go forward on that. So I guess the real question is, do we want to have some intermediate other step before we actually vote on the budget? Or are you seeking direction as to what you should consider?
Well, I'm not seeking direction on that item for the MSR yet. I think the commission is aware of the program and the goals. We've set out the work plan that anticipates that we will move in that direction. What that and the timing of how that gets done and whether or not additional funding is needed will come at a future next month's meeting, I think. And I can tell you right now, there's no anticipation to ask for any additional consulting services. Essentially, I'm asking for a longer period of time for me to complete.
Okay. So that answers one of my questions, because that would eat up a chunk of consulting services if that's what, of your budget, if that's what you would be asking for. Well, that sort of answers my questions is where it's going. I would entertain questions or comments from the other
I have a
commissioners.
question. So
Commissioner Gard?
with the MSR program, that's going to require a lot of time and detail, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so an analyst would be someone that could come in and assist in that while you continue to do all these other things that are coming down the pike for the year.
An analyst would assist in that. I would anticipate that your executive officer would write the bulk of that
Right.
document. And the analyst would be able to take many of the routine annexations that come forward and process those with oversight from your executive officer.
And then that would exclude bringing in consultants or anything like that to,
And under that scenario, we
Yes.
would not need consultants.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Gard?
Yes, I recognize Commissioner Guyer.
Well, first, I'd like to thank the EO for this comprehensive study. It's very, very good. I really favor myself option 2, and I like it because we're getting a new person on board, which I think it's really good for us to look towards transition planning. And I think that's a real good step forward, helping the caseload, but also transition for the future. And I also would ask, does the EO have any recommendation or preference?
Mr. Brady?
I agree. I think option 2 is probably where I was at with this. At least some help and some transitioning along the way would be, I think, an appropriate next step for us.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? I have a follow-up question related to that. How confident are you that a Planner 1 or Planner 2, which if I understand is what you attach, has the experience and horsepower to do the necessary tasks? My understanding is, at least at the entry level, that's more clerical than analytical, and as that you proceed up the planner scale, you capable of doing more complex tasks. And I just question and ask you whether you think a Planner 1 or Planner 2 is adequate to the workload.
I'll answer that in this way. Essentially, the LAFCO that I came from, we transitioned in that manner with an entry-level analyst, and I thought we worked the work program for that county very well, and so I think it's capable. I think that allows us to kind of buy in at the lowest rate, if you will, of opportunity to add employee to the model. And it really comes down to the selection in the interview process of the candidate pool, I think, is who you're going to get. So it puts, I think it puts the onus on me to find the right fit for what we're trying to accomplish here in Santa Barbara.
Thank you. Any, Commissioner Sevis?
Yeah, Mr. Prater, how much do we budget right now for consultants to help you? I mean, looking at option one, how much money do we set aside for consultants?
Last budget, we put aside $40,000 for professional services. And essentially, that only covers our mapping services with surveyor's office, services for other county functions, auditor's office, assessor's office, and for CSB-TV. We didn't set aside any dollars for an actual consultant to write or produce any product.
Okay, was there a need for that last year?
No, I don't think we had that need.
Okay, what I'm having a problem with is trying to justify hiring another full-time employee and the cost that comes with that. I would be more comfortable maintaining status quo with a little twist. And the twist is budgeting additional money for analysts so that should there be a need to do it, we can contract it initially and then transition to a full-time if we can justify the need. So that's where I'm going. I'm going with option one with a twist. Would that work?
I have not contemplated that option, as a twist to that. There's certain, I don't know what it would cost to hire a consultant to help assist with the MSR. I did lay out some initial figures that I solicited from neighboring LAFCOs that performed a similar fire service document. And those numbers were quite high, in my opinion. It kind of astonished me as to what the cost was. And so I felt it would be more prudent to use that resource on an employee where we could get much more work product than one document, one MSR out of them. I think an employee yields more benefits in the ability to work on anything that we need service for. And we can probably expand the special studies arena and produce even more work than it would be under a consultant model.
Okay, when would this commission need to make a decision about hiring a full-time employee?
My thought was that the commission could give me direction at this meeting as to a leaning of that and maybe investigate what the cost truly would be for that salaried position. And the ultimate decision would not be until you adopt the budget.
Okay, well, I guess my final comment then is that I'd be open to further discussion and justification from you as to the job description of this individual, what the expectations are, and what the actual costs are going to be, as compared to hiring someone on a contract basis. So, thank you.
Mr. Stark.
Commissioner Waterfield?
From what I hear from our EO is that I think consistency is what he needs in the office to get someone up and going and continue with that. And from what I heard from Commissioner Geyer was that we've got somebody already being developed should something ever happen to our EEO, that someone can just step in to where we're not rambling or trying to guess where we are. Working with a chair this year, you saw so many things coming up, and I asked him many times, how do you do it? Don't you need help? And maybe that's where I, came in, where I think you need to have somebody in your office that can be there for you and assist you with these things. What would you call that person? And it was the analyst. And so seeing that firsthand was just, I see the need to do it. The job description, I agree with you on that, Mr. Sedley. Exactly what would that be? But I would hope that the planning or the commissions would, give him the direction to go search that out and bring it back so he can get started up with it. Because it's just going to get busier and busier. It's not going to slow down.
May I make a suggestion? I suppose I could. Can I suggest we bring this back to the February meeting and to answer some of the questions that Supervisor or Commissioner Sevis raised as to what you could expect to get with respect to the different sorts of job descriptions?
Yes, just as long as we don't drag it out.
No,
Because
I'm not
time is of
talking about dragging
essence,
it out.
Yeah.
My understanding is that we make a firm decision on this when we adopt the budget, which is in April. We don't have all that much time, but I think there's some legitimate questions can be raised about what you can get for the money that you spend, and when you really have to make a final decision that would be useful information that us to have before we vote on the budget.
I'd like to hear from the rest of the commissioners as to what they expect from the
Chair.
research to come back.
Chair Stark?
Yes, Commissioner Guyer, was that?
Yeah, I can support that coming back next month, but I would like to see it agendized for action. Because I think it's prudent to not drag this out so that we can prepare our budget for the coming year. Because the budget has to be distributed, there's quite a process to adopting our budget. So I'd like to see it agendized for action in February.
Agendized as to what? To give direction on the staffing and or contract model to pursue for the budget? Is that the action that we want? Is it, Commissioner Guyer? Is that?
No, the action, and give direction now to bring back the information, and in February be able to take action on it to adopt one of these.
One preferred path. That's the action that you wish to take next month without going any further. Is that? Is there
Yes.
any comments as to that concept? It seems to be.
Well, it depends on what comes back in February. I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing preparing somebody to assume the role of our CO if he's not here. And then I'm hearing in the report, it's an analyst. An analyst is not, an analyst does basically the grunt work to get the reports ready. So I'm hearing two different things. And so without it vetted as far as the description, the workload, I would need that next month to be able to make a decision as to whether we budget for a full-time position and all the associated benefits, or we budget for a consultant that comes in on a job basis and handle it that way. So, but I'd like to hear from everybody else what's happening.
Thank you. Commissioner Freeman has his hand raised, I'm informed.
Yes, and I'm sorry if there's now a leaf blower near me. So coming into this meeting, for what it's worth, I was thinking about something that you could argue was more in line with what Director or Commissioner Sevis is talking about with respect to I didn't think of it as the twist with having a budget for consultant, but I was thinking of it in terms of like a temporary appointment for that position. Although honestly, I think that Commissioner Sevis's idea is better than what I was thinking with respect to how that would be, how that would manifest with that new person. However, after hearing the commentary on that, the analysis that had been looked into that by Prater, as well as the comments that have been coming up about the benefits of having somebody else on staff in order to provide transition, I've moved into the camp of wanting to go with the option 2. And the response that I'll have to Commissioner Sevis's notion, not notion makes it sound bad, correct, I think, statement that there's a difference between somebody who could step in to become the executive officer versus somebody who is potentially an analyst. I think that a big aspect of providing continuity of a staffing in an organization comes from just having people know where everything is, having people who are who know the history of the organization, know the ways in which things tend to get done. And even if you have somebody who is in a very different position than the leader of an organization, having people like that who were there on a day-to-day basis, working with that executive officer, and are then able to help a new executive officer who comes in step into that role effectively, I think is a massive time saver, as well as makes it so that the organization doesn't feel discontinuous. And so those were the reasons why I ended up getting very rapidly convinced in the direction of going with option 2, as has been described by Commissioner Geyer as well as by Executive Officer Prater. So,
Thank you. Any further commissioners wish to comment?
Mr. Chair?
Council?
If I could just offer a comment, Mr. Prater and I just had a sidebar. If you're looking at a consultant analyst role or model, we'd have to be careful about not trying to go back into the process we've used in the past of having a person be an independent contractor and basically functioning like a employee of the agency, of the commission. I don't think that's what you're discussing. I think you're talking about much more of perhaps a consulting firm, providing analyst services. Maybe you would find an individual who does this for a living for several commissions and districts. But just that general statement of concern that we have to be careful about what we back into here. Yeah. And if we're really going down a role of having one person being basically the staff, and that person should be an employee, not a contractor. But I think you're well aware of that, so I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and I wasn't limiting the options. I wanted the executive officer to come back with the various options to meet the workload of the organization. If it's an independent contractor, if it's a consultant, if it's a full-time employee, come back with a justification so we can make a decision on it.
Thank you. My understanding, Council, Supervisor, I go to Commissioner Lavanino, who has his hand raised before I comment further.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So surprisingly, I do not really have a strong opinion on this either way. And for me, I see the wisdom in both ways, but honestly on this, I'm going to defer to Mr. Prater just because he's the one that's got to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. And I don't think it's going to have, any kind of debilitating effect on anybody's budget. I think it sets us up for the future if we move into option 2. But I also see Roger's point as well. So, I probably would have stayed silent, except Roger kept asking for other people's opinions. And honestly, I don't really have one on this one. So that's why I've been quiet.
Thank you. My observation, is in response to our council's remarks, my assumption is that whatever we do, we would structure it to come down on the correct side of the independent contractor employee divide, which I'm pretty clear on this. It's much harder to sustain an independent contractor status than it used to be. And with that bears the recognition that if you have an employee, you have to do all the things that you have to do with respect to employees. You have to have office space, you have to train them, you have to monitor them, and you have to factor that into the decision that we make. That being said, I would entertain a motion of any sort, particularly I'd entertain a motion to bring this back next month for a decision as to what direction we wish to pursue with respect to the staffing, and would request our executive officer to provide the information that Supervisor Seves requested with respect to sample job descriptions, what you could expect to get from a particular type of recruitment or independent contractor service. Does that cover?
So you're saying that we're not picking an option for him to go after, we're just want to come back with more information. So could you say we pick option 2 with the information that he gets all of this, whether it's an independent contractor or a permanent employee?
I would leave it up to the commissioner to make whatever motion you think, if that's what you want to do. I'd ask the executive director to comment on whether that's an appropriate motion to make.
Sorry, I just had a sidebar with our clerk. She had a few comments that she would like to make, just to bring it into the fold as a full picture before the commission does make a motion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Stark, or Chair Stark, members of the commission, Jacqueline Alexander, Chief Deputy Clerk of the Board. Hope you can all hear me okay. My mask is a little thick. I just would like to thank the commission for the opportunity to provide a few comments. It sounds like you might be continuing this item into next month, but just wanted to take the opportunity briefly. Since the clerk service agreement was approved back in 2013, the workload in the clerk of the board's office has increased exponentially. This increase in workload is due to an increase in LAFCO-related duties, but as well as additional duties unrelated to LAFCO, and as expected, additional workload related to COVID-19, which is expected to remain in the clerk of the board's office, and the clerk of the board's staffing has remained status quo. Upon review and discussion with the county executive office, the clerk of the board is in favor of options 1 and 2, but would require a provision that the county approve additional staffing in the clerk of the board's office in order to complete the current workload of LAFCO commissioner. Otherwise, additionally, we would recommend an additional 5th option, which would involve a hybrid approach of contracting with the clerk of the board for clerk-related services and hire a part-time or full-time, depending on the commission needs, administrative professional to provide administrative and clerical services. I'm happy to answer any questions the commission may have, but just wanted to provide those insights.
Any questions from commissioners? I have a question to clarify the last thing you said. Your recommendation is we enter into a contract with the clerk of the board for whatever clerk of the board services we need and hire an administrative professional. Is that what you said?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, kind of 2 parts. We as the county executive office are willing to go along with options 1 or 2, that's status quo or adding an additional full-time analyst, which I'm hearing is the need for LAFCO right now, so option 2. Otherwise, if neither of those are chosen, or if the clerk of the board does not receive additional staff in this year's budget, then we would recommend a 5th option in order to fulfill the duties that are required for LAFCO. So the 5th option would be clerking services with our office, but then hiring an additional staff member either on a part-time or full-time level to fulfill more of the administrative clerical duties.
That's administrative clerical, not necessarily analyst. That's
Exactly. So it could, I think that also could fold into, kind of a hybrid mix of either 2 or 3.
Thank you. Commissioner
Chair
Waterfield.
Stark?
I'm sorry, I think Mr. Guyer was before me.
And Commissioner Hartman as well. Who was?
Mr. Guyer was first.
Okay, Mr. Guyer.
Yeah, I had a little bit difficulty hearing the clerk talk, but I just want to verify that what was said was that the clerk could fulfill option 2.
May I request Ms. Alexander to comment on that?
Yes, Chair Stark and members of the commission. Sorry, Commissioner Guyer, can you hear me okay? It is pretty,
Well, I can hear you, but my
It's-
hearing's not that good either, but
I know, I'm sorry, it's pretty muffled. How's that? Is that any better?
It's better.
Thank you for your question. For clarification, what we were saying is if we went with option 2, it would require that the clerk of the board's office receive additional staffing, but that would not be coming from LAFCO, of course, that would be coming from the county executive office. So that is
Okay.
an additional conversation outside of LAFCO.
okay, so the fee from the clerk of the board's office wouldn't change. It's just that you'd have to change your staffing.
Correct, that is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hartman.
My question is whether one person could fulfill both some of the clerk's, duties as well as an analyst duty. Is there such a person there, or do we have to have 2 separate people?
That is a good question. I think from what I'm hearing, many of those administrative functions are in need of an additional employee on the clerk of the board side. And if they do not receive that, their recommendation is that LAFCO take on that responsibility. And so we will do our best to meet that challenge. The individual that, if there is one out there that is hired as an analyst, would certainly be able to be assigned any task that is needed of LAFCO, as well as your executive officer will perform any duty that is necessary to get the work done. I mean, that's the bottom line, is that we need to get the work done. And so we'll do our best to achieve that goal.
So we're looking for a junkyard dog analyst clerk.
I mean, that changes the wrinkle a little bit in that it more leans to probably a part-time service of a clerk than a hybrid individual. But you never know. We just might find what we're looking for out there. And I hate to say no, because I'd rather ask and see if we can find that before I turn that option down.
Well, what is the pleasure of the commission? Commissioner Seven?
Yeah, this changes the discussion quite a bit. I understand the problems in the clerk's office, the lack of staffing. We have now moved to holding meetings only in Santa Barbara because of that. And so if we have a North County plan, they'd either have to come down here or do it remotely. But we've always had the ability, if it was North County, to handle when we're in North County for the convenience of everybody. So, when I came on this commission, we had our own clerk. And perhaps our discussion should be extended to the point of looking at that and seeing what the cost would be, so that we can not be so codependent on the county for services, that we can handle it ourselves as a LAFCO commission. So I hate to add more things to your next meeting agenda, but I think we need to talk about that. I think we need to talk about, because the clerk is a specialized position. They're trained, it's legally, I don't want to say controlled, but they have statutes they have to follow. And, that's why they go to special schools for that. So it's not just bringing somebody in to work as a clerk. You got to work it as per the law requires. So I think we need further discussion next month as to not being so codependent.
Thank you. I've got Commissioner Waterfield and Commissioner Lavanino on tap.
I think when we talk about getting our own clerk, we got to think of what our clerk here provides to LAFCO as far as agendas, as far as copiers, as far as all of those things that maybe we don't want to get too separated, that we want to make sure we keep a part-time clerk from the county, because a lot comes with it and with what they do and with equipment that we won't necessarily have to purchase because it's already done. We're already paying through it through our clerk. So, I mean, but that's something that our EO can put on his spreadsheet for next month. I'd love to get back to going to North County and South County again. And it's the clerk that puts all that stuff together too. So we just got to make sure that we look at all of those issues. But what's more important is that we look at the need of what our EO needs to do the job of LAFCO. And if he needs, a full-time analyst, and I think we just need to try to make every provision to see that that happens. He is the one doing the work. So that can be put into your spreadsheet as well.
And let's see, Commissioner Lavanino.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't even want to go down that road. I mean, I was on the commission when we had, outside clerking services. Honestly, it is night and day compared to where it was in the past. I think it's a complete waste of time to go back and try to reimagine how this all could work. I mean, to me, Mr. Prater's asking for something very simple. It's like, hey, I need some help. We need to get a professional in here to help with this. If the person's good, maybe session plan. But, I think reimagining entire LAFCO is a little bit out of what we need to be doing. I know Mr. Seves was around. It was brutal, man. We spent almost every meeting arguing about how many copies were being made of things, and how much they cost and where did somebody drive. And it was just like, man, come on. So we've got Jacqueline's doing an awesome job. I think the clerk's office is doing an awesome. You're not dependent on the county. I don't think it's dependent on the county. It's completely separate. So anyway, I think, option 2, come back and have Mr. Prater, kind of flesh it out a little bit is really all we need to do.
So, do I understand correctly, Commissioner Lavanino, that you would favor a motion that generally endorses option 2, but continues the matter for Mr. Prater to return with a fuller detail of what that might yeah,
that sounds like a reasonable motion. It kind of encompasses what everybody's been talking about.
I would solicit such a motion. I would second.
Well, you just did, and I just gave it to you, so
Okay,
we're all good.
I would entertain a second.
I'll second.
I'll second it, but I would like the motion to include that when it comes back next month, that it be agendized to take action on it.
Is that
Absolutely.
Is that acceptable to the motion? So the maker of the motion is to bring the matter back next month for a refinement of option 2, including details as to the services that might be provided and the costs of providing such services.
And to take action.
And to take action.
Can we just have a moment down here at the
Certainly.
table?
Yeah. Wait a minute, makes it. Council?
So to take action at this stage, certainly it sounds like the action would be to direct Mr. Prater to prepare a budget that would implement option 2. Mm-hmm. And then he's also thinking, quick sidebar down here, the job descriptions for the, the staff person would be reviewed and approved, at least conceptually, by the commission. I'm sure you could refine that over time based on need or further analysis. That would be the first step. Once we, as we said down here, once we see the money, then everything else will start falling in line. But there's going to, be a planning curve and an implementation curve. But, getting the money into the budget would be the key first step, and that would get everything rolling. That's the action we would recommend.
Yes, we have, Commissioner Freeman wants to comment. Commissioner Sevis has a comment. Could you reiterate the preferred form of that motion so that everybody's clear on what we're doing?
Well, just to try to put some specificity on what would action be at this stage in the process, what we are envisioning is the action would be to direct Mr. Prater to come back with a budget in April that implements alternative 2.
Okay.
And then he's got some other specificity to that in terms of job descriptions that he's interested in. And I think he would also, and I think they're in the packet before you here today, and he would seek direction on those job descriptions sort of being the guide for him on how to proceed with hiring people.
And what is the relationship between the budget and the job description?
It just gives, and I'll defer to Mr. Prater, but it gives them a better idea of what we're pursuing. And Mike, you want to?
Yeah, I think to get to Commissioner Sevi's point, and it will define the role and tasks and duties of the individual, and set out the salary and parameters and range for that. And so I think I could bring that back in February, get a blessing from the commission, if you will, that seems to be the direction. And with that, this motion today would also set the tone for the April budget to include that position in that budget. So we're walking ourselves to the budget with a refinement of what that role and duty and clarification is for that individual. And then in April, we bring forth a budget that implements that person, and then get direction at that point then to start the hiring solicitation process.
So, let's see if I understand it right. What you're asking for is a general direction to proceed for option 2 in the budget, that is add another position. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Then you will return to us, not exactly clear when, but you will return to us with a refinement of information as to the costs and the job description that you would actually intend to pursue filling as the need becomes more apparent. That would be next month or as the need arise?
I would bring that back next month.
So that would be included in the much to bring the refinement back in February to approve the concept of going forward with budget preparation today. Is that the motion that you're soliciting?
Yeah.
And is that agreeable to the maker and seconder of the motion?
And I assume as part of that report, we'll have more information regarding the clerk of the board's needs in terms of an administrative professional and whether or not their staff is going to be expanded and how that's going to play out.
And I would assume that if there needs to be further dialogue between us and the CEO, county CEO, or the clerk of the board, that we would engage in that. I would echo Supervisor Lavanino's comment. We don't want to depart from the system that we have. We're in the no mistakes business. So we can't afford to be sloppy about counting and sending out notices and stuff like that. We have to do things right. In any event, any Supervisor or Commissioner Freeman, did you have anything further to say? I've got your name, but I don't know if you've already spoken.
I've not. Yes. So it was actually is perfect time to bring me back because this is the topic I wanted to ask about. Might we need to make a formal request to the county to do that staffing increase? And because I don't know if I'm just incorrectly overly concerned by the comments that come from the clerk of the board, but with my also relative inexperience of the agency relations between LAFCO and the county supervisors, and of course we have some of them here, but with relation to agendizing things. But I don't know if that staffing modification is something that would have to go to the board of supervisors. It's still to me like knowing what the status of that staffing would affect our ability to make a decision on committing to a particular option. So if we were to agendize this for an actual action in order to then make a decision for what was going to go onto the budget in the future, we might want to try to get within the next month some kind of feedback from the county with respect to whether they will increase that staffing. I'm just not certain. Like, is there a more direct action that we need to take in order to catalyze the process of getting such information?
I think as part of the motion, and we would encourage the interaction between our executive officer and clerk of the board and the county CEO to obtain as much clarity as we can. My understanding is the county budget process starts when it starts. There's an interactive process. And at some point, if you have a request that you want to make or you want to support, there's an opportunity to do it. And we would avail ourselves of that opportunity at the appropriate time. Is that basically, Ms. Alexander?
Yes, Chair Stark and members of the commission, that is correct. We are actually just beginning that process for budget 22-23 now. And we do have a meeting next Thursday.
Could I just clarify?
Yeah.
You know,
Supervisor Exevis.
Maybe I misspoke when I said, let's go back the way you were before. I was frustrated from hearing from the clerk that they're overwhelmed. We have an excellent contract with the county on the clerk services, very professional. Go through the contract, it's in today's report, and what's being provided. So we have a contract with the county, and the county now has accepted the contract and has to provide the services. So maybe we have a discussion as to if they can't do it, we should have a discussion as to how they can do it. And if there's a contract to be looked at, maybe we look at it. But no way do I want to infer that I want to eliminate what we have going for us right now. I just need to make sure that there's a clear understanding on both sides on the needs of this commission and how to get the job done. I mean, this contract's been in existence since 2013. In fact, if you look at the report, I'm the one that signed it. So it's worked and will continue to work, but I just get frustrated when I hear that there isn't enough staff to meet the obligations. If I'm hearing it correctly, there's not enough staff to meet the obligations of our contractual services. So when we come back, maybe we have that discussion with the county and see, and they'll have their further meetings and see where we're at and how we continue forward.
Thank you. Any further comments from commissioners?
I've got one. On that notion, all I could say is Mr. Prater's telling us the same thing, and nobody's frustrated on that end. It's Mr. Prater saying he can't, he needs additional staff. Things change. Maybe when we started this, we didn't have as much going on in LAFCO. I remember sitting for years when we really had not a whole lot of action. So, I don't want it to, I think the less confrontational we are about trying to get additional funding, especially for Jacqueline's positions, the better off we're going to be. So, it just could be increased workload, and she's going to she'll be the one to try to make that argument. And I'd be interested to see how that works with her. I'm sure it's not a huge amount of money to the county, but the other thing is, I'll just leave it at that.
Chair Stark?
Yes, I just want to know, do we have a motion that we can, Mr. Guyer?
Yeah, I think in continuing on with what Commissioner Labanito said, part of my feeling for this is to not drag it out because, we in the budget, if our budget increases, we naturally have to pass that on. And also part of that project is to take a look at our fees. I mean, if the costs to process a fee have cost us more, then part of our process should also be to look at the fee schedule. So the longer we drag it out, I think it's just time to make a decision.
I would recognize Commissioner Freeman, and then I would call for a restatement of the question and vote. Commissioner Freeman.
Thank you. I would just ask one quick clarification. So my potentially incorrect understanding is that we pay the clerk's office and based on a number of hours that they bill to us, and that the amount of those hours will vary depending on the amount of work that they do for us and that they feel able to do for us. And that essentially the pushback that we're getting is that they don't have the capacity in order to even bill us more. So the reason I ask this clarification is that in Commissioner Lavanino's comment, there's this kind of notion of a requesting the county for funding, but like from my perspective, it's more like requesting that the county provides capacity, because we'll end up paying the county for the increased staffing that they provide. It's just a matter of making certain that in their budget, they've actually allocated the capacity to be paid by us. So I don't really consider it, confrontational at all. It's more just, hey, can we work together on that? But, yeah.
Thank you. May I have the motion reiterated so we can vote? Call for the question.
I'll let somebody else try to paraphrase it, because I think I'll just leave it up to somebody else.
Mr. Lavanino made the motion. It was seconded by, I believe, Commissioner Waterfield, although there were 2 attempts to second it. And this would be agendized for action under the approach outlined in option 2. And specific action would include direction to Mr. Prater to prepare a proposed budget that would include the funding necessary to implement this option. And he sees it useful to, at that point, have you at least conceptually approve job descriptions, including salary ranges for an employee. And we would also, Mr. Prater, in the meantime, would be in conversations with the county about the clerk's needs in terms of what LAFCO can do to make that go smoothly, so that we continue to get the level of service needed by LAFCO. And that's what I've got. If I've missed anything, let me know.
Thank you.
And that's my motion.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's my second, okay.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Seves,
Aye.
Commissioner Freeman,
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman,
Aye.
Commissioner Lavanino,
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield,
Aye.
Chair Stark.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So we'll be hearing next month on this. The next item is information item number 1. Would the clerk please read that item into the record?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, information item number 1 is an update from LAFCO Coastal Roundtable and 2022 calendar of events.
Madam Clerk, are there any requests to, is there a report?
Yep, brief report, Chair. This is just a reminder that LAFCO held their virtual roundtable meeting, and we were fortunate to have 3 Santa Barbara members in attendance, myself and 2 commissioners. We once again were the largest turnout of the roundtable feature, and as a result of that, they had to move us to breakout rooms in which we all got to participate in the agenda conversation about the challenges that our LAFCOs are facing. And so I will just note that if any of the commissioners that were in attendance would like to comment a little bit more on their participation, that would be great. And then lastly, the calendar of events is attached for the commissioners' information, which outlines the upcoming events, and if there's any interest and participation in any one of those, particularly the webinars, to reach out to your executive officer or our clerk, and we will make sure that you can attend any of those.
Thank you. I'd probably say I attended the region, it's the regional roundtable, so it's the coastal region, which shockingly enough includes Napa County for some reason. I think it's because of their wine. It's usually a good theory. In any event, I thought it's quite interesting. One thing that came to my attention, which I may want to discuss next week in connection with the MSRs, was the concept of climate change and what different agencies are doing about plans for climate change. I noticed the county has a really spiffy collaborative plan for input. So I'm curious about whether that can be incorporated into MSRs, inquiring what people have to do with climate change. But I think next week might be an appropriate time to discuss that. I thought it was pretty interesting anyway, and certainly I was struck with the notion that there are many of the problems that we face that are really regional problems in the Central Coast area, San Luis and Ventura, and even going up to Monterey. Yeah, I thought it's interesting. Are there any items any requests to speak from the public on this?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, we have no request to speak on this item.
Thank you. I don't think we need a motion on this. We can proceed to the next item, which is information item number 2. Do I have that correct?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, information item number 2 is to receive and file a report on the UCLA Planning and Land Use Conference to be held January 21st, 2022.
Great. This announcement is for the commissioners that would like to attend this conference. I know typically we usually have a few, and so the brochure is attached. If anything draws your attention or piques your interest, we can certainly help assist in your attendance in that. I understand they're doing it virtually and in person. So if there are any questions about the conference, I'm happy to answer anything.
I have no questions about it. Unfortunately, I'm going to miss the conference because there's a Cal LAFCO virtual meeting the same time. I would like to be sure that I can get a copy of the PDF of the materials that actually have the case summaries and the CEQA events as opposed to the brochure. So if either our council can, get the PDF. It's very valuable material. I don't know who the speaker is, but the conference is always good. Expensive as hell. It's like $600, even if it's virtual. It's shocking. In any event, we don't need a motion on this. Shall we proceed?
Chair Stark and members of the commission, our next item is information item number 3. It is to receive and file a report on the special district elections.
Mr. Prater.
Great. Our last informational item for this afternoon is on the independent special districts. Our regular member, Jay Freeman's seat is expiring on March of this year. And so the Special District Selection Committee will need to appoint and fill that position. Hopefully it's with Jay again. We'll see. We need to formally go through a process of nominations and vote. And so we have initiated that process with a memo to all the districts to start the nomination period by the presiding officers. That nomination period closes on January 14th. We are slated to hold a special districts meeting on January 24th. This would be an in-person meeting at the Santa Maria Airport after their local chapter meeting. Barring a quorum of the special districts, we would proceed with the election and appointment of that position. In the event that we do not receive a quorum, then staff would reevaluate and start the process for a mailed ballot election process and it would extend the time in which the special districts would appoint their member. If that were the case, during that extension, our regular special district member, Jay Freeman, would be able to continue to sit and serve on LAFCO until his replacement is made or he's reappointed. So that's just an announcement that process has started.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this? Hearing none, we will now go to commissioner announcements and requests for future items. Any commissioner announcements? I mentioned the thing about the climate change and things like that. I can bring that up at the MSR thing, so that doesn't need a request for a future item. Hearing no other requests, executive officer comments?
I have no further comments.
In that case, we are now adjourned. Thank you, Commissioner Waterfield, for your service, and we'll see you February 3rd, 1 o'clock here.